Menopause, menstrual cycle, mental illness, they all start with men. So without the men, we'd probably be find life a lot easier.
And I had to really understand, was I facilitating a vulnerable adult to come back to top sport, or were the horses facilitating his recovery? I think if we did wife swap, it would probably make a very good podcast.
People listening might think, well, these horsey lot. So no, I can assure you there's no husband swapping. Welcome to Talk Horse, the gallops through the highs and lows of equestrian life. I'm Pippa Funnell, 3 times Olympic medalist. I've been eventing for over 40 years now, and I love everything to do with horses.
And I'm not Tristan Phipps. I'm Alice Plunkett, former eventer and national hunt jockey, and I've been friends with Pippa for I don't even want to count how many years, and I'm looking forward to just a gallop through everything to do with Pips and me.
Saddle up and join our equestrian community. Let's talk horse. Alice, thank you so much. I know you're not Tristan Phipps, and it gives me a little bit of a breather from looking at a very handsome young man.
I am literally, I cannot believe it, Pips. When you said come, I was thinking, I know I want to go and chat to my old friend, but oh my God, he looks absolutely gorgeous. Where is he, for goodness sake?
Well, I think he's playing Tarzan down in the jungle.
But can I just ask one thing? Can I come back as a guest when he's here? Because I've heard so much about him and there's been so much noise about this gorgeous guy. Please, can I just come back and be a guest one day?
Well, I think I'm probably more like his grandmother, but yes.
I know you and I will be like, oh, young man, oh, are you all right?
Yeah, of course, you're more than welcome.
Thanks,
and it is, as I said, it's great to have you standing in and coming to have a chat.
Well, can you believe they call this a job, Pips? Because basically we love sitting around the table, having a coffee and chewing the cud, and somehow now we're doing it and they call this a job.
Explain a little bit to the guys listening how you got involved in the equestrian world to start with.
Well, a bit like you, horses have been part of my life, my whole life. I'm married to William Fox-Pitt, your great friend, who you've been in teams with, I think, since you were like 14, 15. So when I got together with William, it was a bit like sort of getting together. You definitely had to get past the best friends. You and Tina, quite formidable best friends, Tina Cook and Pippa Funnell as best friends of your husband. Can you imagine as the girlfriend being introduced? It was a little bit intimidating. But my sort of background in horses was much more normal, really, than William's, because his mother was so talented and she rode on British teams. My mum and dad just loved horses. So we were riding ponies and we were in the pony club. We loved our hunting. My dad kind of rode in the heavyweights and the points. And my grandfather had a mare that he bred a few national hunt horses. So my 16th birthday present was to go and ride out for Roddy Armitage, who trained my granddad's horses, father of Marcus Armitage, who won the Grand National, and G Armitage, who is one of my all-time heroes. She was a phenomenal jockey.
She was one of the first real names, lady jockeys, wasn't she?
Yeah, and for a long time she was the only woman to be the leading jockey at the National Hunt Festival at Cheltenham. And now she's got an incredible daughter, Katie, who's riding in Pony Nations Cup teams, and her passion for show jumping and doing things really well. She's
didn't know that.
Yeah,
really
she's
exciting to follow.
Amazing, and trains with Tina Fletcher, who's her oldest buddy from when they were little girls. So that's really fun. But I turned up there in my Patey hat and my tight whites, really not.
This is in the day when we had the hats. We didn't have to have chin straps.
Yeah, it was it sounds like it was.
We're going back a long way.
Pre-war. But the moment I got on a racehorse and I set foot on the gallops and I listened to the banter and I was part of that thing, I just loved it. I was hooked. And I got really lucky. I'd been eventing and pony clubbing, and then I got to ride in some points in my year out. We had this wonderful horse called the Bold King's Hussar, who my granddad had bred. He'd been in the Hussars in the war. He'd been a prisoner of war. And when he died, he left the horse to my mum, and he left a note saying, I can see this horse's white face landing over beeches or coming up the hill at Cheltenham. And he was a 4-year-old at that time. Mm-hmm. And G actually rode him in some races, and then he was due to run at Aintree the year that Marcus was riding in the National. And we had a spare jockey in case he hurt himself. but he went and won the national. So we were all there celebrating Mr. Frisk. And the next race was an amateur chase. And Marcus came out to ride our horse. Literally practically got on the wrong horse. And you can imagine the Grand National, the biggest race in the world. And poor Marcus had to come out and jump on the Huzzy, as we called him. Anyway, he got a little bit injured that day, came home for his rehab and was ready to get back racing when I finished school. So I was allowed to start racing on the Bold King's Hussar. And he was phenomenal the first 3 races. He was second, and then I fell off him, and then he was second again. And then he came out the next season and he won the Ladies' Open at the Beaufort point to point. And honestly, I thought You
thought you won the national?
Well, I thought I was at National Velvet, to be perfectly honest. I mean, National Velvet and International Velvet pretty much defined my life. And so my mum went, well, we're qualified for Aintree. I was like, what? I was 19. So, well, Dad, or my granddad, said, she could see him jumping beaches. So off we went. And I turned up at Aintree. I'd ridden in 4 points. I'd never ridden on a race course. I had done a European Championships Young Riders eventing, and I'd hunted this horse and jumped him across the Vale. But really, and Richard Pittman came to interview me in the morning and he said, I don't really know what to say because, this is an extraordinarily ridiculous idea. It was 1993. Anyway, I rode out in the morning with all the Grand National horses on the course in the morning. And honestly, Pips, I'd have to say it was one of the highlights of my life, And I joke about National Velvet, but I really did love that movie. And I was just cantering my horse around Aintree with all the Grand National horses for the next day. And I went down to the start, but Guy Avis, who was a great old friend and mentor of mine, was leading me around to the start. He was a bit naughty at the start, has he? So I even looked ridiculous on the telly on a leading rein at the start. But he jumped off and I had the most extraordinary spin and finished the race in 7th or 8th. And when I went to wash him off and put him away, I suddenly then couldn't find anyone. And I was wandering around the course trying to find my mum and dad. It was pre-mobile phones. And the security guy found me and he said, are you all right? And I went, no, I've lost my mum and my dad. I've just jumped around the National. And he took me under the grandstand and said, Bob, we've got a little girl. She thinks she's ridden around Aintree. Can we put out a call? So this call goes out. We have a lost child. Would Mrs. Plunkett please come to security? And my mum was in a box somewhere sort of going, oh, I'm so brilliant. I've bred a jockey and a horse that's jumped around. And heard this thing about a lost child. Anyway, she appeared and scooped me up. And it was an amazing experience. And people often say, was Aintree harder than Badminton? Badminton was harder for me because it was more premeditated.
Because you are one of the, I don't think anyone else has.
No other woman.
No other who's jumped around Badminton and,
so there's
Aintree.
4 guys, but there's, I'm just lucky. But it genuinely is luck because that experience on Huzzy was really just a sort of family dream.
Had you jumped around Badminton before that?
No, I didn't jump around Badminton
so
until 2000.
So that helped you jumping into the lake at Badminton, jumping
landing over beaches.
Brook.
But it was more of a sort of family, Grandad really pushed that because when he died, he wrote that note. And so Mum was so keen to fulfill his wish. And so it was a really special thing to have done. I did get asked to ride. The Sun had a punter in 2000 who had bet that Manchester United would win the treble, all these different things, and that a woman would win the Grand National before the millennium. And we went around the country with all this money from the Sun to try and lease a horse that I would ride. But unfortunately, we never found. So I never got to ride in the National proper. But I did have that extraordinary experience.
Maybe you could still do it.
Have you seen the size of my tummy?
The jumps aren't as big as they used to be. Oh,
no, in my day, they were so much bigger.
No, but moving away from that, obviously, William, as you say, is one of my dearest friends. And William Fox-Pitt, of course, I'm talking about, not my husband, William. How did you come to sort of obviously meet him? Because going back, I remember you very much. Obviously, you are actually a few years younger than me.
I'm glad you pointed out.
And I remember watching you eventing, but I never really got to become the friends
Well,
we
you were the
are.
queen. I mean, I
No,
wouldn't have...
wasn't the queen.
But,
But
I mean, I was
obviously,
so far down
William
there.
and I were greatest of chums, but also probably he was my main rival, but I don't look at him as a rival. And obviously that was when our friendship started. And I love your William to bits, but no, I possibly couldn't be. Well, I couldn't be married to him, and all full credit. I mean,
Well,
I'm
it's
not...
quite good because you and Tina are his eventing wives. I always say that, you know, you're his eventing wives. You can get him to the right place at the right time in the right clothes.
Well, I don't know whether we can because Tina and I are always a bit late, but possibly we'd be 10 or 20 minutes late, whereas with William, we'd be an hour late.
So we met when I was 14 and he was 18. And he, I
And did you fancy him at the age of 14?
No, he remembers it really well. He remembers
Aww.
this sweet little girl coming in and I sort of, you know, was quite annoying. He was riding a horse for my cousin and I met him in the truck and, you know, absolutely thought nothing of it. But we became good friends and we became great friends and we sort of stayed good friends through. He had a few ups and downs personally. And I was working on the Melbourne Cup and he was riding in Adelaide in the 3-day event. And he rang me wanting to get tickets for the races. And he was single at that point, having been through a marriage. And so I sorted out things. And then he came out with all of us. And he spent the whole time moaning about, you know, poor him, all these awful things, poor him. We all just, oh my God. So when he came back to England, I was like, right, I'm going to set him up with someone. So I organised all these suppers for poor William with all these gorgeous girls and, you know, kept on. And I kept saying to him, oh, you know, it's so ridiculous.
And none of them would put up with him, obviously.
And I kept talking to him like a friend going, oh, I think, you know, the trouble with me is I keep going for the prince and I need to kiss more frogs and then, you know, they'll turn into a prince. And then suddenly we got together and he said, one day he went, does that mean I'm a frog? And
a long neck frog.
A long neck. And I was, you know, and you think, why did I have that conversation with that person? Anyway, you know, it's quite a risk when you step over the line of a friend into a relationship. For me, I value my friends so highly. It doesn't. But, you know, it's felt very natural. We've been incredibly lucky. He's an amazing person. And at that time, I just... literally 4 weeks after we got together, my second sister was diagnosed. They said they couldn't treat her anymore with cancer. And to have someone like William as this amazing rock all the way through and that knew Eloise was really special for me. And, you know, of course, we have a lot of crossovers. I'm very relieved I had retired from eventing by the time we'd got together because I wouldn't have wanted to be in competition with him because he's so extraordinary.
I will second that because having travelled abroad with him several times, you saw William on the world stage and he absolutely has been the best probably we've ever seen in the sport. He's won more 3-day events than any other. But behind the scenes, I've taken him to events and we're very organised. We have nice little sacks of haulsage, everything's kept tidy, and William puts a whole massive great round bale of hay in within a couple of hours. The lorry's covered in hay. And
do you know what's extraordinary with him is that nothing is a problem. Nothing
is a problem.
Isn't he is so laid back. So Kazuma Tomoto, who's been his star pupil for the last 7 years and got a bronze at the Olympics in Paris, I said to him, you know, what is it about William? He said, it's so extraordinary. You go to these events and there's trainers running around, they're smoking fags, looking, oh my God, they knock a fence and everybody's like, oh. And he said, you know, with William, nothing is a problem. So you go up and you go, oh, I don't know. And he goes, jump, do the circle, do a flying change. And that's what he's like in life. He can't understand why anybody worries about anything.
He must... I mean, I find him always very amusing. Okay, listen, this podcast isn't all about talking about your husband behind his back, but I don't know whether you find as a wife, as a friend, he's always been the most honest person to me. So if I suddenly wear something out or I've got a new hat, he'd be the first to say, good God, that looks desperate. What are you wearing that for? And he'd be so brutally honest, but you actually think, actually, do you know what? He's right.
Yeah, I know. But imagine the things that he's exactly like that. But one of my sort of all-time favourite things he said to me is, it must be really odd knowing you're only crying because of your hormones. only said that once, let me just say. Did not say that again. And he's like, what? He's extraordinary.
You just reminded me of something I saw the other day about, have you ever realised that all women's problems start with men? Menopause, menstrual cycle, mental illness. They all start with men. So without the men, we'd probably be find life a lot easier.
The thing that I'm so lucky is that there's 3 people in our marriage, because Jockey Potts, who many of you won't know, but if you don't, look up Jockey Potts Equestrian Services, because she has been William's professional wife for 32 years. I mean, she came when he was 22.
I remember well.
And
she deserves a medal.
She deserves a medal. And he was at university with 2 horses, and she came as a temp and she stayed for 32 years. And she is the marginal gain. She is the different. She is so extraordinary with horses. She has this sort of sixth sense where she's a healer, and she's incredibly spiritual, and she lays her hands on the horses and really, amongst a million other things. But she has taken, I have nothing to do with the yard. That's Jockey and William, and his success is all down to those 2. And thank goodness, quite honestly, because I don't think we could work and live together.
Well, I mean, we have obviously a similar thing with the same, well, not the same situation, but I mean, I think you and I are very lucky that we've both found the men in our lives have a true love of horses and involvement with horses, and we're on the same lines, but we're married to 2 sort of strong individuals, and actually we'd be quite similar because we'd be quite strong female individuals.
But your husband is amazing. I mean, William Funnell is, well, he's obviously a hero to everyone. I mean, 5 wins in the Hickstead Derby is completely dotty. It's like 6 wins at Burghley for my William. But, rather like you would say with my William, I hold him in the highest regard. He makes me laugh. The number of times where we've been in the support crew for you and my William at championships, and we have laughed so much because he's my kind of support husband, your William. And we've laughed so much, whether it's trying to get through security to get into.
I know he's got a soft spot for you, Al, as well.
But could I be married? I think if we did wife swap, it would probably make a very good podcast / thing. I think your William would go completely mad being anything to do with living with me. But I think we ought to move on, because we might get ourselves into trouble.
No, because people listening might think, well, these horsey lot. So no, I can assure you there's no husband swapping in this room. There's no.
Absolutely not. In my role on ITV, we deal with some challenging issues with horse welfare, and it's very difficult to really vocalise what the horse is within my life, within your life, that doesn't sound trite and doesn't sound like you're trying to defend the indefensible. Because for me, horses have been a guiding light through my life. And if you'd said to my parents when I was 18 or 19 that my passion for the horse would be my professional life, they would have gone, oh no, that's ridiculous, you're going to... But I can genuinely say that the passion for the horse, I genuinely don't care if I'm on telly or not. I mean, I'm just so lucky that I have this passion that has led me into some fantastic roles and incredible experiences. But to vocalise what the horse means and why you're prepared to put yourself at risk and your horses at risk within the sport is quite a difficult and challenging thing to explain to a wider audience. But every morning you're up and you're managing your horses and you're living with your horses and you're training your horses to be the best that they can be within a structured training program that thinks and listens to the horse, thinks and understands the horse in the same way as I wouldn't ask my children to do their A-levels when they're 10. I wouldn't ask my horses to jump around badminton when they're 7, because we have a program that produces them in that way. And it's not just a love, it's a thread that runs through us. And I think that society now has become so risk averse that it's very difficult sometimes to understand how we can be comfortable with risk. And it's very interesting with William. my husband William, because he had this horrible fall in 2015.
Well, I know, because
Tina and you were very brilliant to come out. But it really focused my mind on risk because he suffered a severe brain injury and
he was in a coma for a while.
Coma for 8 days, and the recovery process was always on a returning athlete because the Rio Olympics were in 2016 and he was managed as a returning athlete. But, getting back on a horse with double vision and, vulnerable head was a big risk. And I had to really understand, was I facilitating a vulnerable adult to come back to top sport, or were the horses facilitating his recovery? Because he is intrinsically a horseman. The horses are what guide him through his week, what guide him through his year. And those touch points with the horses are so important for him. That's who he is. It's defined by it. And lots of people would say to me, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Why are you letting this happen? First off, I'm not in control of my husband, but there was a time where without Jockey and myself and the team, he wouldn't have been able to do what he was doing. But there is no doubt that getting on the horses, trying to get back to the William Fox-Pitt world number one, the day he fell, he was world number one. He had just won Badminton. He was the king of his sport, and his whole world fell apart. But the constant was the horses, and so horses like Little Fire, probably Graffinat actually, another wonderful horse called Chilly Morning, who had come to him with his own confidence issues, and he repaid him tenfold because he held William's hand through that recovery process. And Will's now stepped back from the sport, but there is no doubt that the risk we took in putting himself out there again was made possible by the horses. But it's very hard to always, to really paint the picture to people who question what we do with horses, to really get them to understand that it's more than just using horses for pleasure. It's a relationship that goes back thousands of years, whether it's through agriculture, war, the horse, it has been part of human society, and the horse is more than just something we're using for our pleasure. The situation that's come up with Charlotte Dujardin is one of the saddest things for me that I've ever seen in the sport, because for somebody in that position to do something that I just cannot understand when I've been around top professional horse people all my life, and I just find it so sad that somebody in that position can get in a situation where they react like that within a training session, because it's so far removed from everything I've seen, whether it's with you or William or Yogi, who make their life. It makes me feel intrinsically sad because it paints the wrong, such an alien vision of what I understand as horse sport.
I feel it's a stab in the chest when there are people out there that think we're all like that.
I know.
And it is like a knife is being twisted in. And we do, my husband and I, we breed a lot of horses, and no, they're not factory farmed. Every horse is treated as an individual. And I would open up the yard. Anyone could come to our yard at any time of day, see the horses, see how young ones are treated, see how happy the horses are, see the system. And this is what I want to. I'm not saying that we're perfect in any stretch of the imagination, but one thing that is a positive is we have to all individually look at ourselves and think, and I do find myself every day I sit on a horse, I think, can I just try things a bit different? And the way I teach, no, it's not about telling them how to, what the horse is doing and they should do this. I work on the rider, seeing how can they think of riding them better. And as soon as the rider starts stopping thinking about the horse and thinking of themselves, the horses start to go, oh, lovely, you're leaving me alone now. And they are the most incredible animals to work with, and so trusting.
So can I just ask, because Pips, you've just kind of given me a couple of things where I think people listening are going to be going, can you just ask it? So your eventing career is and has been phenomenal. And I asked William lots and lots of times before he ultimately came to the decision. From all the things that you're enjoying, like this podcast and your books and your thing, are you feeling like the time is approaching where you might think, do you know what? What else is there to achieve? I've done it. I am who I am, and actually I'm finding there are some other things that I'm enjoying.
I would
agree. Breaking news.
No breaking news. No, I certainly am who I am. I can't change that. But listen, I don't want to say I am going to say I'm 4 years off 60. I've got to be realistic. And the one thing, I don't want to put my horses in a position that my reactions aren't quick enough. And yes, I don't particularly want to go to Badminton to be 25th.
Of course you don't.
And my priority, I find myself riding. I love riding. I still am riding as many horses as I've ever ridden. And do I question my nerves in a very, what is a dangerous sport, eventing? I think on the ground I do. As soon as I'm on the horse, I'm absolutely fine. But no, I don't, because I'm riding 4-year-olds that can buck you off and deck you at any moment. So
I'm just really interested because it was difficult for William.
I know.
I was amazed at how hard it was. Even when we were at Badminton, he'd done that incredible cross country round. It was fun
amazing
to watch. He was at one with his horse. He found this beautiful rhythm. He never went to the hand. He just floated on Graffinet round there. How he ended up having the worst show jumping round he's ever had in his career, I don't know. But anyway. Probably it was meant to be, because if he had won, we probably would have been in more of a muddle. But, he was standing in that ring about to go into the prize giving saying, they want me to say something. They want me to say something. What am I going to say? And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you what to say.
And now you're saying you want me to say something.
I'm like, what are you going to say? What are you going to say? And he's like, shall I say maybe this might be? And maybe this might be, darling, isn't really what people want to hear, And he's going, well, am I saying it because what people want to hear? And I said, no. But what more? Where do you want to go next? One of the things I'm so proud of for William is that it wasn't always going to be his control to exit the sport on his terms. And what was so incredible for me as his wife at Badminton was watching him be as good as he's ever been, and then say, I could go on, but actually the right thing for me to do now is to say this is my last Badminton. Now look, it wasn't quite like that, because we had like literally doing and throwing in the collecting ring, and him looking at me, am I going to say, am I going to say that? And of course with the 6 fences down, it made it all a bit, but we could have gone, well, maybe we'll go on to Burley, and then the horse is lame, and then, but actually I've seen so many huntsmen and just for him to own it has meant that the next chapter for him is challenging. Oh God, don't get me wrong, it's challenging, but it's put him on a footing of owning the next chapter, and on good days feeling, okay, this is okay. It was my decision. I chose it. I mean, that accident could have ended it anyway. So that was, it's different from with you, but...
Well, it's not different at all. I think anyone listening to the podcast, change is frightening, whether you're an athlete...
But it's also often good.
Yes, exactly, but...
It's frightening.
It is. And when you've been doing something, and I know many people involved in sport, and I suppose... With us, in some ways, it could be even a little bit difficult, because our sport, because of the horses, we're lucky enough that we can have a very long career in it. Whereas, you're looking at Andy Murray, Federer, Nadal, or just those tennis players, let alone the golfing, footballers, and everything. Their sporting career is actually really quite a short period of their life compared to ours. But they're very tough it's tough decisions.
Because it also defines the rhythm of your year. It defines, Will's you're coming into 2025 for the first time in pretty much 35 years where he's not in a programme that's defined by his horse, where his horse's preparation for badminton or multiple horses' preparation for badminton, Kentucky. And I can see him being like, or is there much point in getting out of bed, really? I mean, why am I...
Well, I
Does
suppose
it matter?
I've always... I know when I had that amazing year in 2003, when I won the Rolex Grand Slam, the following year or the end of that year, I remember thinking, it's going to actually, as incredible as it was, it's actually going to be tough because realistically, my career, I'm realistically not going to ever have a year as good as this. So do I keep going? Because I'm not going to have a year as good as this. And then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, actually, no, I do it because of the day-to-day love of working with the horses. So even now, I've realised my career hasn't been about trying to be at the top of the sport, trying to win. Yes, for sure, I'm competitive, but it's not been all about Badminton Burley. My main thing has been about
the horses.
Step. Yeah, whether it be a young one. So I mean, I've loved every one of, and I've loved what each horse has taught me. Right from baby
and I've
ones.
loved your dottiness about your horses. I love, as we've got older, we're all sort of a bit harder and a bit
Well, it's because
more.
I haven't got children, though.
No, it's not. That's part of it, but it's not. Your doggies are your children. Your horses are something different. Your horses are you have never lost that twinkle that you had when you were 15 and you were with Bruce McMullen, and you've just never lost it. It's so great.
Yeah, but we're all well, a lot of us are like that, and that's
no one's like you, Pips. No one is like you.
So, Alice, this is new to me, doing co-hosting the podcast. But I'm really interested how you managed to cross over into the television world so successfully.
Well, it's funny, I was going to go when I left university. My parents had, we talked a bit about horses being your career. My parents weren't really that keen on horses being my career. So I was going to go and work for the Racing Post. I'm bilingual in French, and I was going to go to Paris to work for the Racing Post and be their French correspondent. And I was going to take my horses out there. And then my dear sister, Katie, got ill and died. And I felt it was really not right to leave my mum and my family. So I stayed at home, carried on eventing with a team of horses. And it was a really weird thing. There was a series going on called, which was called Reaching for the Stars. And it was about young people doing different things in sport, and they had a gymnast and musician, and British Eventing suggested they followed me as the rider, and I had a really nice horse at the time, and they followed me at Blenheim, and I led the dressage at Blenheim, and then I fell in the water. It was great telly, and they loved it,
the highs and lows
and all of this. And the guy that produced it was John Peel, the Radio 1 DJ's brother, and he said to me, look, you come across quite well, you ought to think about doing more of this. So the next year I went back and worked for Fox FM, which was the local radio station at Blenheim, and I was Alice from the Palace. And I covered Blenheim, and then I worked as a runner at Cheltenham on the Festival Radio, which was the local radio, the radio for the racecourse, just pulling jockeys out. And I was riding and, pointing, and so I was kind of in touch with everyone. And they asked me if I wanted to have my own show the next year because I got on really well with the producer. So I did the morning and Luke Harvey did the afternoon, and Marcus Armitage wrote this article saying, would you rather wake up with Alice or go home with Harvey? And
I think I'd rather wake up with Alice.
Anyway, it was really fun and I loved it, and someone heard it and asked me to do the same for Royal Ascot and the Derby, and so I did that, having never been flat racing, really honestly had no idea. And then Sky, I was still eventing, and Sky then saw me do that and asked if I'd do a screen test for the racing channel, which I did. and got the job, and then was still eventing. So I had to sort of make a decision. I was very lucky that I had been really trying to get a sponsor for my eventers, and I'd gone round Badminton, gone into all the hospitality tents and offered myself to do course walks. I mean, how ridiculous was that? I was like 23 and had never ridden around Badminton. And whilst I was doing one of these course walks, I'm not sure Jane Tuckwell knows, so I probably shouldn't say. I was sort of just pimping myself out.
Jane Tuckwell, of course, being the director of Badminton Horse Girls.
I was just walking into hospitality tents going, didn't want like a course walk with somebody who knows absolutely nothing. Anyway, whilst I was walking around, this lovely man said, we're looking to sponsor a rider. We've been talking to Mary King, but we think that she perhaps is at a different stage in her career and we'd like a younger up-and-coming rider. And I said, hi. I'm younger. I don't know if I'm up-and-coming. And that's how I got Racing Green, who loaned me money to buy horses and gave me £25,000 a year. Can you believe it? To run my horses. So I made the decision to cut my string down, put them with Simon Lawrence on full livery. I decided I would be better to pay someone to muck out and earn some money than muck out and not earn any money. And Simon was amazing. And so with him, I did Bramham, Burley, Badminton, but at the same time was working for the Racing Channel. And it didn't all go smoothly. One day I was warming up at Gatcombe and my phone rang. It was my boss who said, he was a guy called Mick Embleton, a really nice guy. Why he didn't fire me, I don't know. And he goes, all right, Alice, yeah, no, good. Yeah, my horse is going really well. And he goes, what time are you going to get to Hereford? Sorry, because you're meant to be on air in 20 minutes.
Oh, no.
Right, I've had a bit of a diary malfunction here. I'm currently on a horse. So, it didn't always go smoothly, but I really enjoyed it. I found it, because I just love the horses and the racing, I'm interested in people. I just kept on going. And Claire Balding was saying to me at the time, look, you need to really focus on the broadcasting. And I said, I'm just not finished with the riding yet. I'm just not finished. And in 2000, I got the opportunity to ride at Badminton. And then I won the 3-day at Weston Park. Then I went to Punchestown in 2001 and was second in the 4-star there. And then someone offered me good money for my horses. So I feel really proud. I sold my horses, I paid my mortgage, and I left feeling very comfortable. I sort of thought, do I try and finish in the top 10 at Badminton, or am I just happy to have done it and move on? And I decided I was happy to have done it, and I don't regret the decision.
Well, look at the career
I
you've
feel
now
really
got.
lucky. And when I joined Channel 4 Racing, it was in 2001, 2002. It was just unbelievable. John McCrurick, John Frankham, Lord Oaksey, Jim McGrath, and then this
absolute icons within
icons, and then this silly little horsey girl who sort of appeared aged 28, thinking,
but you
how
had
have I done this?
The passion and knowledge, and I know when I've seen you interviewing so many jockeys now at the finish of races, and they've got enormous trust in you, and you ask very sensible, knowledgeable questions.
That has been a really fun thing, but I've looked on at you just thinking, how have you found the time to write these wonderful books? Because my little girls, who are 10 and 12, are mad about you as a rider, but actually more mad about you as an author. Where did that come from, and how did you think of it? How have you found the time?
Well, I didn't. The idea was sown, the seed was sown from, I had a meeting with, I did an autobiography, I felt I was far too young to do it, with Orion Publishing. And that went well back in 2003 after the Grand Slam. I felt I was far too young to do an autobiography. And then I was approached by the same publishers, but the children's sort of department, saying, would I be interested in doing a series of children's books? And I thought, oh yeah, no problem. That'd be easy. I said, so are the stories written? I just thought, because of the computer games I'd done, and I sort of felt, because I was sort of, my name was out there in that world, that they just basically wanted to use my name, because I'd heard of people that just had ghostwriters and put their names to things. And I said, well, yeah, fine. And I said, but I'd like to see the stories first. And they said, what do you mean? The stories aren't, And I said, I just haven't got time. And then when I used to go on rides and driving all over Europe and things, my brain got thinking of, if I did write children's books, what would I write about? And then I suddenly thought more and more about it. And I thought, what would the main character be? And it just all sort of came into my head.
Is the main character you?
I'm a lot of characters in the book.
Yeah, I wonder that.
So the main character is a lot of it. No, she's not me. Tilly is not me, but she is.
Yeah.
Then Angela, the main sort of girl, the who instructs and teaches. That's how I would teach. Yeah. So I'm actually quite a lot of characters in the book, and a lot of the books they're true stories behind a lot of the stories.
I thought that.
Pride and Joy. One of the stories is about an old event horse I had, Primrose Pride. Stripey the zebra foal. That's all about the safari I was very lucky enough to go on. It's a lovely one about a drum horse, Goliath, and he was Tilly. The main character went to to do work experience at Wild Horse Welfare, and he was a rescue horse. So it talks about the rescue, and he ended up going into the household cavalry and becoming a drum horse. He was a big shire horse. So there are a lot of true stories behind them, but I just felt it was a wonderful way to try and get across to youngsters the importance of being kind, the importance of the responsibilities you have to have if you have anything to do with ponies or horses, whether it be looking after or riding or whatever. So I thought it was a good way to educate. And
have you enjoyed it? Have you enjoyed the process?
Yes. I mean, I loved it. And when I sort of finished, I was sort of, oh my God, but these characters in my head had come to life.
They're your special friends.
I know. What's going to happen to Tilly now? But my husband and some of his friends, the way they think, they go, don't worry, we'll write the sequel of what happens when Tilly's a bit older. And I said, no, you're absolutely not.
But it's fun because my girls ride, and I think sometimes Will and I both chat about why do we want them to ride, and all the things you talk about in your books about Tilly and her passion for the ponies and the things that she faces and her friends and the solace she finds in her ponies. We I don't have aspirations for my children to be Pippa or William, because I know that you're the riders of your generation, and I know how hard you've worked and how much you've dreamt of your horses and thought of your horses, but it's not been plain sailing, and same for William.
But we were, those kids reading those books, we were those children once. It's about play. Reading has to be good for children. Play has to be. It gets them away from the iPad. It gets them away from computer games. And I think that's key. And that's where it all starts.
But that's what ponies do.
Exactly.
So for my girls, I want them to ride because I want them to face challenges. I want them to understand disappointment. I want them to celebrate success in a humble way. I want them to understand commitment. I want them to understand responsibility. I want them to understand that something needs them. It's not all about what they need. That other things, there is something there that needs them, and they have to step up. And sometimes they're scared, and that's okay. And sometimes they're brave, and that's okay. And sometimes things go wrong, and you don't come out of the ring and start crying and shouting. And more often than not, understand it's your fault, not your pony's. And there's life lessons. And Willow was very interesting the other day talking about it, what he feels he's learnt from his horses. And that thing of celebrating success in a humble way, of understanding that when things go wrong, they will go wrong again, but they will then go right. And
it's what lessons you learn when things go wrong. Because if things don't go wrong, you never learn.
Yeah. And that's why I think those come through in your stories. And that's for me why I feel so lucky to be able to give my children the opportunity to be involved with ponies. Now, my boys weren't so keen, but my girls are really enjoying it. And it's really, really lovely to be able to get the horses to teach them a bit, because you don't want to listen to them up.
We've known each other a very long time, and the producer has suggested to us that we've got to just come up with a couple of fun facts about ourselves. One's true and one's false. So, obviously I left it till the last minute, and I was on the train on the way up. So It was just interesting because you were chatting earlier about you being bilingual, which intrigued me because I actually have the same thing with French.
Okay.
You didn't know that?
No, I did not know that. How come you're bilingual?
Well, I started it at school.
Oh, I went to the French lycée when I was 4 to when I was 11. That's how I am.
Okay, my other fact is I'm not madly in love with Alfie Boe, but I love his voice. And
Is this a true fact?
I used to go on to my girls about him in the yard. And Frankie, who was one of my head girls, worked for me for a while. She was great fun. For Christmas, she thought it'd be really fun to give me a life-size cardboard cutout of Alfie Boe. So Alfie Boe spent Christmas Day with us in our sitting room. I hope he's listening.
I think that you're not bilingual in French and that Alfie Boe did spend Christmas with you.
Yeah, you are right. You are right. As a cardboard cutout, Alfie Boe did. And yeah, my French isn't very good because I have to say I failed my French O-level because I was hiding, smoking. I used to smoke. I was a naughty teenager and I got trapped in where we hid for smoking at school because the cleaners came in the room next door and I missed my French GCSE oral. And I don't think my parents, well, Dad will never know because he's obviously no longer with us. But if Mum listens to the podcast, sorry, Mum. Well, I don't smoke. I gave up smoking many years ago. So yes, okay. I can say chef de keep, and I can say oui, not oui.
Très bien.
Comment ça va? Yeah, okay. So I actually am fluent. Comment ça va?
So I spent a lot of time dreaming of being a show jumper, not a racing jockey or an eventer, and tried to get an apprenticeship in a show jumping yard because that was what I wanted to do.
Who with?
A New Zealand rider called Bruce Gooden, who had a business in Belgium, and that was what I wanted to do. And my other fact is that I really love swimming in December naked in the sea.
I think you probably really love swimming naked in the sea. You didn't want to be a show jumper.
That's right. I love swimming in it, and it really, really, my husband and my children find it the most embarrassing, awful. And my children, I heard them saying to their friends, if ever you're embarrassed by your parents, think of us.
I didn't know that. I definitely would never go in the sea.
It's my favourite thing.
Al, it's been such fun.
I can't believe you're ending it. Well, have we got to stop now? I haven't even touched on like a whole load of things I was going to goss with you. Can we go to the pub now?
Well, I think we could probably go for a cup of tea first and then to the pub. It's been great catching up and I'm sure we're going to get you on it again. And I know we're going to get your husband on it at a
Can I just
say,
Tristan,
date.
Can you just go on a few more glamorous holidays somewhere else? Because I really like your chair.
Or otherwise, Al, maybe I might go, Tristan, on a glamorous holiday.
Why don't you go and I could be here with Tristan? Yes. Anybody want to take Pippa on a horse safari? I'm more than happy to be here with Tristan.
Anyway, if you've enjoyed hearing us banter away and talking horse, make sure you subscribe and join the community. You can follow the podcast on all the various channels.
Yeah, we want to hear from you. You'll find us, of course, on Instagram, TikTok, and all the social media platforms. So do get in touch and follow the link.
Our email is info@talk-horse.com. Do tell us any questions that you want answered and look forward to seeing you next time.
Please do subscribe. Join us next time. And don't forget, we have got so much more horse talk to share with you.
Bye for now.
Bye.